Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and members of committee, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Growth and Sustainability Committee. This is the fourth meeting of that committee this year, so welcome, and we look forward to hearing from anyone and everyone who has made preparation for comments. Prior to starting out, I do need to say that all cell phones and pagers and PDAs should be turned off, and for the members of the public who are attending and those on virtual media should keep their microphones muted until they are acknowledged to speak. Okay, so prior to commencing with the Growth and Sustainability meeting agenda, we have a few announcements that have to be made. Comments can be made from the public or the public from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section tonight. And the public may submit written comments for the matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting for consideration by this committee. Comments received after 4:30 on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting. Comments submitted are included in the record. And finally, that this meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the Township's website. Now I have the pleasure of acknowledging those that came before us with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty lands. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-ندruk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuits from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Bless you. Now, is there a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any or a conflict of interest by members of committee? Whoops. I was just about to say none. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a conflict, actually, of item 10.2 on this agenda. It's item GS 32-25. It's a recommendation report, PD-21-2025, regarding Lindy Truck and Trailer. The file is number 1601-014-24. So I was not present for that meeting, the public meeting, and I was unable to connect from where I was on vacation. And so as per our procedural bylaw, I'm unable to vote on that issue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that disclosure. And the clerk at the time of that vote will, in fact, remind us and you that your vote will not be necessary. Okay, public meetings. There are no public meetings for tonight. Change in order of items on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move ahead beyond that. Appointments. There are no appointments. And requests to address items on the agenda. 1 hour in total shall be allocated for this section of the agenda, and each individual person, whether in person or on the virtual media, shall only be provided with 5 minutes to address their issue. Some exceptions do apply. A response may not be provided and the matter may be referred back to staff. A person who wishes to discuss a planning application or a matter that can be appealed will be permitted to speak for 10 minutes. Are there any members of the public on our virtual media that are looking to participate in tonight's meeting, Kevin?
Not seeing any, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And seeing no hands in the chamber, I will move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda items, which there are none of. I'm very sad to think that Councillor Rayner may not have to go home in the dark tonight. Communications. There are no communications. And now we'll move on to staff reports. Item 10.1. Item GS 31-25, Manager of Legislative Services, an information report, LLS-05-2025, Economic Development Roundtable, initial engagement sessions. I have to change my agenda. Sorry about that, people. Okay, and the recommendation for that report is that the information report LLS-05-2025 titled Economic Development Roundtable Initial Engagement Sessions dated June 9th be received for information. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Machuk, Councillor Bradrick. Thank you. Are we going to hear from staff on that at all? Sir, it's you. Legislative Services.
Through the chair, I think Mr. Borma, the Director of Growth and Sustainability, has a few comments for council on this.
Mr. Borma.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So this is a report about, information report about some activities that the township is going to undertake in connection with economic development, both the legal and legislative services together with growth and sustainability are proposing to hold 2 economic development roundtable sessions to hear from both the urban industry and commercial business owners in Smithville and West Lincoln, and a separate one to hear from the rural and agricultural businesses and communities in West Lincoln to understand what barriers and challenges they may face when running and operating their businesses as well as expanding them. This is also part of a focus on reviewing our policies, especially on the planning side, of what barriers and challenges there may be on our planning side for these businesses to grow and expand, as we've heard over the years. This has come up numerous times in front of council, that there's barriers to expansion and new economic development growth. And so staff are proposing these 2 roundtable sessions. In addition, there was a strong mayor directive that was provided to establish this task force. Right now, it's going to start with these 2 roundtables, but that could inform future steps that this task force could take to provide good customer service at a local level, as well as advocating for these businesses at higher up levels to start looking more at economic development in the township. And the clerk and myself are available if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Borma. You got out of that one. Are there any questions? Madam Mayor.
So no question, Madam Chair, but certainly a response. So as you know, when the Strong Mayor Powers came into being, I first sent something with the guidance of our clerk staff and our CAO, and sort of talking about what that would mean for West Lincoln. And I said that I would only consider using any kind of power if it benefited West Lincoln in some way. And so as I looked at all of this and thinking, since I was first on council in 2016, 2017, and you, Madam Chair, were the chair of planning at that point, we were talking about the need for economic development even at that point in time. We are now on our 3rd CAO, and we still haven't really done anything. And mostly we haven't done anything because of the cost of a person who might be that economic development officer that we all saw other municipalities gaining. So back to Strong Mayor Powers, one of the things that I did do was ask the CAO to continue to look after senior staff. I have no intention of directing senior staff to do anything to hire them, fire them, do anything connected to that, which is part of the Strong Mayor's powers. And I did pass back to members of council the right to put a committee together to hire or to appoint whoever's going to be the chair of that committee. There are a lot of things in the Strong Mayor powers that we just do, and I just want us to continue doing things the way we do. So when I learned that one of the Strong Mayor powers said I can ask staff to do research or to come up with a topic, I thought that that was a way to finally expedite, because again, the conversation came up, but to expedite getting this to council for discussion. So as far as I'm concerned, I've done my job. I've asked them to start to do a little bit of research and look at some beginning steps of this, and ask for that report to come back to this council for discussion. And that's really all I want to say about it. I think any way like this, that there's an opportunity to use those strong mayor powers to get something moving faster than it normally would move. And I think this is a subject that has moved particularly slowly over the years, partly because COVID got in the way, I think, but there were lots of other reasons as well that complicated it, to say nothing about budget. So I would like to have council have a really good, thorough discussion about the pros and cons of this report and the first steps. But in doing so, I also would like council to start thinking about what it should look like. Should this be a committee of council with some members that we appoint? Should it have several members from the public, business owners, Chamber of Commerce people? Start thinking about what the composition of this eventually could look like, because we're not going to be in a financial position to really be looking at hiring economic development staff. But we are one of the last few remaining municipalities that don't have that. So when you're competing for businesses and looking to attract businesses to our community, I feel we're at a disadvantage when we don't have anybody who actually, that's their job, that we can say, oh, you need to talk to, and we don't have anybody. But moving forward, if it's the will of council, we could direct them to a committee chair or to the committee in general if somebody has some ideas that they're bringing forward. So anyway, I'm done. I just want you to know how that came about and where it came from. I do thank our clerk. I think he gave a good explanation as well. But I wanted you to hear from me that this is just a way to get this in front of you so that we can actually have a good discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing that kind of struck me with what the mayor just said was the mayor said she would only use the strong mayor's power if it benefited West Lincoln. And it makes it sound like the rest of us here don't want to do that. That doesn't make sense to me. This council is very proactive in making sure that we do the right things to the benefit of West Lincoln. So to say we're going to use that to benefit West Lincoln circumvents the purpose of us being here to do that. So I would like to think that the people around this horseshoe are here representing the people of West Lincoln for the benefit of West Lincoln.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Did you want to
I would
rebuttal?
just like to clarify that. What I said was, I use the strong mayor powers to get this report in front of council. I did not say I was doing anything personally to benefit West Lincoln. I think getting this discussion faster in front of council is the answer. So if Councillor Rayner wants to add something to this discussion, I think that would be great. I'm hoping everybody else will as well. It's not a discussion about whether or not the strong mayor powers are appropriate. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the both of you, and I think that I'll go to my next speaker because, in fact, we won't be having a discussion about strong mayor powers tonight, but we will, I'm sure, in the future. I know some members of council have wanted that, and if need be, we'll get the proper resources in to give that explanation, because this is not a debate, and it's not something that's painful, has to be painful. It's something that has to work for West Lincoln, and I would hope that we come to a consensus. So.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to ask staff, will there be an opportunity if some of the members of council want to attend those roundtables so we can hear firsthand some of the concerns and not necessarily give feedback, but be more familiar with what some of the issues may be?
Through the chair, maybe I'll start and then I can pass it over to the clerk. But I think this is a part of this discussion is understanding what that makeup of that task force would be. So I think everything's in the realm of possibilities. I think right now there's a statement in the report that speaks to staff members being a part of that, but I believe the mayor also mentioned open discussion about if others should be on that as well.
I would consider that since this is a public meeting, although the mayor has made it clear, we would be expecting that members of the council, either in their public role or as by councillors, would be invited into these meetings. So, Councillor Trombetta. No, you go first.
So these development roundtable engagement sessions, I was just gonna I guess Councillor Maychuk was saying it. I think we should have two councillors in rotating when we do have these initial engagement sessions. It saves us from having to meet developers on our own time sometimes, that we get called to go meet with developers on multiple occasions. Developers are asking to meet with members of council on many times. So I guess, as a comment, Madam Chair, I think to the clerk and to Garrett as well, that, when these initial meetings do get set up, I believe 2 councillors should be on that in a rotating schedule. It could be two members of council, and can go 2, 2, and 2, and just roll with it, so everybody is informed on the same, I guess, engagement that they want to have with us, or that we're engaging to do with them. Not that we're kind of not privy to the information. And if someone forgoes that meeting, then it's up to them to figure out what went on in that meeting. So that's my suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetic. Councillor Bradrick?
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to the Director, and I guess to the administration team in general, congratulations on bringing this initiative forward. Whoever sparked the discussion, be it the Mayor or all of you together, thank you very much. It's definitely lacking in our community. We want to see growth. We hear a lot of residents frustrated with the amount of businesses that are in the area and resources that make them have to leave the community. So I guess in that thought, I'm wondering about the community engagement piece. I know we're talking about developers and business owners, rural and rural and urban. How are we going to, or do we know yet on how we would want to engage the general public on that economic development piece?
Mr. Boerma?
Through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, that is a good question. I think we had a pretty good understanding of which types of industries that we would be targeting in Smithville, and also agricultural industries that we've worked with over the years that have a lot of feedback already to us. But I don't know if we fully discussed the general public, but I think the clerk might have a further answer for you.
Through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, it's funny you bring it up. This was mentioned briefly from our communication specialist, Beth, if we were going to be approaching the public. It is a plan in the future. These first few engagements will be specifically with business interests, like Garrett had suggested, that we are aware of, both agricultural and industrial in the urban center. We are thinking about, as we broaden that, and depending on the feedback we get, engaging the public with the potentials of what economic development could look like for the broader public, not just business interests, but also what the public is demanding or seeing that they want. It's all part of a broader perspective for the economic development. But right now, we're just looking at seeing what the business community that's existing that we already have, and then expanding that to what potentially new businesses that we could be wanting to see based on community feedback and council feedback. So right now, it's a little bit of a narrow scope, I'll admit. But when we come back with that information to council with the report that the mayor had mentioned, we will be bringing that, and then if council decides they want to engage the public more directly in a broader sense, we can do that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Well, the comments I would make, and I appreciate the fact that I'm going to speak to this, is that there needs to be a definite rule from council on this kind of economic development, and that's not for trips going to Italy to buy remnants or something like that, or to look at how it was done elsewhere. Certainly, it is good to look at other municipalities, but I will say that most successful municipalities determine themselves that they want to be the high-tech capital of Canada or the industrial capital of Canada, and they look at the lands that they have, and it's an amalgam of what staff have to say, what the community in the form of broader than developers. They certainly play a role. They own the land, and they are the ones that will develop it based on the zoning and the secondary plans that are in place. But there is also the fact that there is a community out there, and what will the market bear? So you're looking beyond the developer. You're looking for the people who will be employed or employ people there. So it is a very comprehensive thing that we are thinking of doing, and I would be very sadly remiss if I didn't speak to the fact that this is a big role for council. strong mayor powers are important. I'm not belittling them at all, Madam Mayor, but this is where we pick how we want to go forward with the help of the community and the industries. 80% of your future growth will happen from the people who are already here. So I think we want to pay attention to all of those things, but we also want to make sure that we understand, because I've heard many members of council talk about, I don't want us to grow up to be that, or I don't want us to look like this. So we have a role, everyone has a role, and I think that this process will not go all the way through without each and every one of you having a good portion of a say in guiding us to the next steps. And Councillor Trombetta.
One more thing to add, Madam Chair. This, I know it's received for information. Is the planning director going to report back once afterwards through you, Madam Chair, as chair? Are they going to be reporting back what the schedule will be or something to this council?
I think I heard him say that, but
Sorry, I might have missed it. Sorry there.
our legislative person dumped this on the planning people, let's see what Mr. Boerma has to say about that. Will you come back here with a schedule for the meetings, when they are, where they are, et cetera, and reporting back on the outcome? Did you want to answer that?
Through the chair, I think the CAO is motioning that he has an answer for this question.
I see. I was getting him. Go ahead, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to attempt to try to frame this exercise, as council is aware, we don't have a funded economic development division, and there is no dedicated staff towards that function right now. We know, though, as the mayor has mentioned, as the mayor has raised, it's important to begin thinking about where are we going as a municipality. So as the chair has said, that we're deliberate about where we're heading and we don't head and end up somewhere by accident. What this is going to begin to let us to do is uncover what would be some potential elements of a future economic development strategy. This will not produce an economic development strategy for the Township of West Lincoln. It will begin the community thinking about it. And to do that, we're proposing two limited engagements. One is with the business community, one is with the agricultural community through two roundtables. So from a staffing capacity perspective, we're not proposing a series of meetings. We're proposing two engagements with these two sectors, and that would be reported back to council in the fall. Out of that, what we're hoping to do is have two things would emerge. One, some quick win projects that we can look at. What are businesses in West Lincoln saying we need? What policies or regulations are in the way that we could take a look at and propose some changes to council to move the community forward? Secondly, in council's strategic plan right there, under Enrich, our strong agricultural legacy, is to begin that conversation with the agricultural community that we haven't yet got to this term. That is a key piece of council's strategic plan. So we wanted to begin advancing that third priority within your strategic plan and bring you back discussion as well, not just for the business community within West Lincoln, but for the agricultural community as well. What are those quick wins? What are those policies, or what are those policies that are in the way of our agricultural community so that we can show them that we're listening and that we're supporting them. That is what we hope to bring back to council in October, is the feedback that we've received from those two sectors, and some potential projects that we could look at in the draft 2026 projects that we could propose at that point. It will not bring back an economic development strategy. Potentially, that might be one of the things that we want to launch into at the end of this. If we wanted to do anything in earnest, though, as a beyond just a task force, if a committee was to be established, that begins pushing us into the realm of needing staff to support the work there. Committees are, in fact, a significant amount of effort to sustain, keep going, build the agendas, and then action items that come out of that committee. So if we wanted to move to a committee structure, we would need to propose some additional resourcing elements in the draft 2026 budget to move us forward. The other bit of caution around moving too quickly into this is that we do not have the servicing in Smithville yet to support robust growth. So if we did decide to move forward and we're going to be attracting businesses A, B, C, this industry is what we're targeting, we're very limited because we do not have an ability to go out and sell the land in West Lincoln to market it because there's no servicing yet. So what we're seeing this as an opportunity to do is begin the discussion with the community, have council show some leadership in getting out and striking those conversations, showing the community in these two important sectors that we're listening, and then we can bring back recommendations for council on what we could do to move some things forward with the staffing and resourcing that we have on hand right now. The objective is not that we want to go to a place where we're bringing staffing requests to council. We want to do this internally with the resources that we have. So hopefully that clears up a little bit about what this is, where we hope to get, and what's going to come back to council in October, and that will be a discussion report essentially on what do we do to move forward, and what does council see of what we heard back as a priority for the community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, I turned it off. I apologize. Any further questions, comments, or concerns emanating from the discussions thus far? So I have a motion in front of me, moved by Councillor Maychuk and seconded by Councillor Bradrick. Seeing no more communication, we will call a vote. Mr. Clerk, can you please bring that forward? Oops, there it is. Moves us to item 10.2, GS 32-25. I need a mover and a seconder for this one in a moment. This is the Manager of Planning and Design, Susan Smythe, I think, and the Director of Growth and Sustainability. The report is three recommendations. Well, first of all, yes. That recommendation report, PD 21-2025, titled Recommendation Report Zoning Bylaw Amendment for 4426 Regional Road 20, file number 160101424, 1806018, Ontario Inc., Lindy Truck and Trailer, dated June 9th, be received, and that no further public meetings are required for consideration of this bylaw in accordance with Section 34, Sub 17 of the Planning Act, and that the application for zoning bylaw amendments submitted by Lofcor Limited, consulting agent on behalf of the owners, who are 1806018 Ontario Inc., be approved in accordance with the attached zoning bylaw amendment with the site-specific regulations and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary bylaw. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Riley, Councillor Bradrick, and this is the mayor's conflict, as we heard earlier. That is duly put on the table. Are there any questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, could you please bring forward that vote? That item carries with the abstention of the mayor. We'll move on to item 10.3, item GS 33-25. The recommendations on this report are that recommendation report PD 22-2025, titled Recommendation Report Elite Smithville Developments, Inc., Zoning Bylaw Amendment, file number 16009-24, and draft plan of subdivision, file number 2000-94-24, dated June 9th, 2025, be received, and that Section 34, Sub 12 of the Planning Act apply, and that no further public meeting is required, and that application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601009-24, to change the development zone to medium and high-density residential, open space, environmental protection, and development with site-specific provisions contained in Schedule A, be approved in accordance with the attached amending zoning bylaw and schedule, that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary bylaw. That the application for the draft plan of subdivision, file number 2000-94-24, be approved in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, and regulations thereunder, subject to draft plan approval, conditions contained in Schedule B of this report, PD 2025, and that the applicant is advised that the township's draft approval of this plan of subdivision will lapse 3 years from the date of its approval unless town council grants an extension of the approval period prior to its lapsing. If an extension is required, an updated review will occur, and the revisions to the conditions of the draft plan approval may be necessary at that time. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Mayor Gannan, Councillor Maychuk. Questions, concerns, comments on this? Councillor Bradwick.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Director, I was hoping that you could just highlight for the committee in regards to the parking situation for this intensified area, that from what I read in the report, it is lower than what our current level of acceptance is for parking.
Through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, you'll recall that when this came for a public meeting back in April, they had 2 6-story, 88-unit apartment buildings. Those were the specific units that were deficient of parking. They had a parking ratio of approximately 1.4 spaces per unit, where our bylaw requires 1.75 spaces per unit. In working with them following that public meeting, they actually reduced each of those buildings by 8 units to increase their parking ratio over 1.5, which allows for some capacity for visitor parking spaces as well. And planning staff were satisfied with their justification as to why I believe it's just over 1.5 spaces per unit was appropriate in this particular development. I should note the applicants are online. They said the connection is a little choppy, but they are also available to answer any questions that may occur. And they've also noted, wanted us to pass along that they're in full support of the recommendations in the report. But did you have anything to add for parking? All right.
So just to clarify that is still lower than what our current bylaw allows for, or variance.
Yes, through the chair, it's approximately a quarter space lower than what our bylaw requires.
I'm concerned for the future councils that once this development does come, fully online, we have seen over the years in our community that is saddled with areas that struggle with parking. And I'm just wondering if we're setting a precedent in future development by allowing this to go at a lower rate. So I'm going to definitely, caution the rest of the committee to take that into consideration when we're looking at approving this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradrick. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad that Councillor Bradrick brought that up. Parking is always an important aspect, and it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder because as families grow, everybody gets a car. This is going to make it a lot more complicated. And a lot of other items, not just this particular project, but there have been many other things that have come over the years that I've been on council, and we didn't alter from what our procedures were, because that would set, as Councillor Bradrick said, the precedent that in the future we wouldn't have a leg to stand on. So unless you hold the line and say, that's it, if you change this, then the next person and the next person and the next person has the escape clause and they can get it. So we're just getting ourselves into more trouble. And who knows, if this one's approved, maybe the next one would want a quarter less, and then we just keep going down. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and I believe Councillor Trombetta brought it up before, is I believe we have a 5-story limit. And we're allowing this to go to 6. I'm about as contentious on this 6-story as Councillor Bradrick is with the parking. And there was a reason that councils in the past had it at a 5-story, was because we want the layout of our town to look nice, not like driving through Hamilton and you've got them up and down and up and down, up and down all over the place. So in continuity and consistency throughout 5-story does not look like an eyesore in the distance. And on top of that, as we talked about, HVAC systems, refrigeration systems, and heating, cooling systems are all mounted on the roofs. You're going to add another bit to that. So I've got two things about this that I would not support if it remains in, and that is 6-story and the existing parking. I would want it brought back to what we have established in this township as the accepted parking space, and not alter from that, so that we don't create problems for the next councils that come down the road, because they won't have a leg to stand on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Councillor Riley, you are next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think to echo my colleagues here, my biggest concern is the parking. And this is not an if, this is going to be a when. There's not going to be a situation where, there is going to be a situation where bylaw is going to have to get involved and start pushing people out of the road because there's nowhere else for them to go. You know, where I live, we have a slightly bigger driveways. These are not bigger driveways as well. So when people, can't even get creative with how they're going to park their extra cars, our community isn't built necessarily in the way that it's going to support these people who are coming in to move here, who are going to be able to get jobs locally. And so we're this 1.5. I know it's an average over the science and mathematics of what could be, but most of these people who are going to be moving into this are going to probably have at least 2 jobs, if not more. And so I think that also means they're going to have 2 cars, if not more. And so I know one of the questions I asked you, Madam Chair, to our staff and the developers or the representatives that are online, and one of the things I asked that be explored was the possibility of underground parking. I know the comment came back about affordability, and that's a buzzword. I get it. What's affordable to one person is going to vary to the next. I think anybody who's moving into this particular area, let alone the name itself is Elite Smithville Developments. It's not saying, affordable Smithville Developments. It sounds like it's a higher class that they're already trying to target. They're not going to come into our community with one vehicle. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure, and I think we really got to be careful with this. As the councillors mentioned, I agree. It sets a precedent, and what does that look like going forward? I certainly am not nearly as concerned about the intensification aspect in this area, because I think it's the one that impacts the least amount of residents. And for fact, I still question how many residents actually know about this, because to this day I've had 0 residents reach out to me and express any concerns, which to me, this one should have been just riddled with concerns, with how our community treats some other developments that are potentially happening or exploring around our community. So I really have concerns in that aspect there. I just don't think I can support this tonight, because I don't think enough's been done to address the parking concern, and I don't think we have the staff to be able to go out and enforce it the way it would need to be enforced when the overnight guests start rolling in and everything else. And I realize this could be done several years down the road, and who knows what that looks like. But at the end of the day, I don't, I know they're coming under that hair under our bylaw there, but there's a reason why we have that bylaw, and the reason why we use it as a guide, and the reason why we try to do our due diligence. And some of the other aspects I'll say briefly here, in terms of like development that's happening, development that's already happened, kind of like near Golden Acres and George Kakalakis area, that they're already complaining, and they have much more area for people to park, and the people are complaining about people parking on the road. They have bigger driveways, and so you don't only have a problem with not having space for people to park in general, but then also when people can park or find space, then we have residents who aren't happy that people are blocking areas there, and you're going to have people park up on the roundabout. Obviously that sounds ridiculous, but that whole area itself kind of gets really congested very quickly, and I don't think that this is an appropriate time to be reducing that parking requirement. So I guess my comments are my comments. I'm not necessarily asking questions at this point, just expressing a little bit of disappointment that more couldn't be done. I appreciate the slight reduction in units in terms of trying to help them bring that target up, but unfortunately it's just not enough.
Madam Chair, yes, I should weigh in on this. I have spoken about this multiple times in this community. These recommendations come to us, and, the developer, wants the zoning bylaw changed to high and, medium and high, and they get their consultant to go through the process, and then they sit on it and flip the land, and Down the road, we're stuck with the high rises in this community, which I've been very, very clear in this community. I do not want to build up, nor will I support while I'm on council building up in this community. I have an idea of a landscape that I want in this community, and it is definitely not up. I've made that multiple times clear, and I will consistently make that clear. This is sort of reminding me of a file that came back when there was trying to get the little piece behind Merritt Funeral Home where that wanted that switch to high density, and we had an uproar on that, and all the homes were developed around, and then all of a sudden people are wanting to put a 6+ story behind that, and again, this is not the landscape that I'm looking for in West Lincoln. That's not something I want. If these things get approved, and again, like the other councilors mentioned, future councils will see this approved, and then, as the years go on, they're going to see some big, high rises in this community, and that's not what I'm looking for. Nor will I, as long as I'm on council, have that in this community. So I've made it clear, Madam Chair, so I will not be supporting anything that's high up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetta. Mayor Gannan for the first time. And then
So I'm just wondering what our staff have to say about the parking issue. I know that you've worked with the developers and you feel that you've moved the needle a little bit on that. I guess I having not been privy to that discussion, not know whether they're looking at any other ways. It really is true. We had a senior seminar the other day on Friday with many between 60 and 80. We're not sure because the numbers fluctuated. But the concern was about transportation and the fact that you have to have a car if you live here. So seniors are looking at that. New people coming in are looking at that. Parking has come back to bite us many times on some of the newer subdivisions that we have. So I guess I'd just like you to weigh in, Director, about whether you see that this is a potential deal breaker, or whether you see that there's still wiggle room. I'm glad the presenters are online and they can listen to this discussion, because they need to know that we've dealt with parking in our municipality, and it's not like any other where you can assume there's public transportation. There is absolutely no public transportation available, and so we're reliant on a car. So I guess I'd just like to know where you see the discussion is at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I do see that the consultants for the applicant do have their hand up. I am going to hold that until I hear from Councillor Maychuk, and then we'll go to them to respond to any and all questions, if that was their choice.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think to the builder at the front end, if they get to that point where people are looking to purchase, how do they handle the question when people come forward and say, we do have 2 cars or 3 cars? Like, how are they planning to manage that beyond the 1.5, knowing that most people in this township do travel to work and would probably have a minimum of 2 vehicles, and now we know we're in that problem that we have too many based on the number of parking spots that will be made available?
I think that question was directed at our planning staff. I'm going to take that belief.
Yeah, I can try to address some of the issues, and staff had similar concerns following the last the public meeting on around parking, especially because we often under bylaws realm get those complaints as well. So I guess one of the questions that Councillor Riley had about underground parking, they are proposing underground parking in addition to surface parking. So just to respond that. Yeah, 204 spaces, okay. And then the issue about precedent, I think just a little bit of background on this is probably important as well. So the parking ratio for single detached houses in West Lincoln historically, since our first zoning bylaw, was 1 space per single detached dwelling. Obviously the market dictated more provision of parking as single attached dwellings were made. And historically, the parking ratio for townhouses and apartments was 1.5 spaces per unit. That was up until I'm going to say around 2018, 2019. We undertook a zoning bylaw amendment to update all of our driveway and garage policies and regulations in our zoning bylaw because we were running into on-street parking issues. And so we did up it to 1.75 at that point in time. So it's actually pretty recent that that parking has increased. So prior to 2019, I believe it was, 1.5 spaces per unit was the permitted number of parking spaces per apartment unit. I do believe we have one other apartment building, the Peter Budd one, that was approved at 1.5 spaces per unit. I'll have to double check that. That was a couple years ago. But this would be the only other apartment building that we've dealt with to date. So there really isn't much to go off of. The one item that I think more or less satisfied Township staff when discussing this with the applicants was that these towers, so they're sufficient on parking on the townhouses. And this development is mainly situated in 2 condo blocks. So the townhouses are all in the north block, and then we have a mix of townhouses and apartments in the south condo block with one public street that comes through and Regional Road 20 along the south, which there's no on-street parking there. So even if, I guess, there was parking issues, it's all constrained within the condo block, within fire lanes, things that the condo's going to have to deal with themselves. So we felt pretty reasonably confident that that spillover is not going to affect our township local roads, even if there's a parking issue. And then one other issue, in addition to parking, I know it was said a couple of times that 6 stories is something that they're going beyond. So when the secondary plan was done here, it did contemplate for 6 stories. 6 stories is permitted if they can show that through design it works. And they've actually stepped it from 5 stories then to 6. So the whole building is not 6 stories. It's actually stepped up in the middle. But the official plan does permit that. They're asking for a zoning bylaw amendment for height because our residential high density zone doesn't contemplate a 6-story building. So I guess that's what I can add for now. And maybe I'll ask if Senior Manager of Planning, Susan Smythe, has anything further. And then I do see Martin's hand is up as well. So.
Thank you. Yes, the only thing I'd like to add is, as contemplated in the secondary plan, is this is a prominent gateway from the west side coming into Smithville, and this was visioned as something to bring in for intensity and to kind of integrate into the existing built form. So this is an opportunity that we thought would fit well. Just as though we were looking at other opportunities on the east end of that secondary plan area. So each end of Smithville will be complemented by these types of residential units. So this is kind of where we thought that this was appropriate and placed. And again, as the underground parking, there was a lot of work done where 204 spaces are underground, and 43 would be surface parking for the condominium block. Thank you.
Does that answer your concern, Councilor Maychuk? Okay. I'm just going to speak to the developers' representatives that are sitting with their hand up. I would say make lots of notes, because you might as well address all of the questions and concerns that are there rather than having a to and fro at the moment. So I'm going to let Councilor Rayner speak once more.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple comments that the director made. He said that based on the situation as it is right now, it would not be a traffic problem on township property, and we'll let the condominium people worry about it. Well, I think that's what we've got to worry about too, is to make sure that the condominium people have the appropriate amount of parking so that they don't have a problem, because when they have a problem, they call us with the problem. So I understand what the director said, that it doesn't cause a problem on township roads, and it's their problem to deal with, but their problem is actually our problem, and that's why we're here tonight to discuss it, is to prevent that situation so that we don't have that. The other thing that kind of bothers me, and we see it all the time, is we have rules and regulations on practically anything you want. And these are our rules, and if you want to go in now and you want to do something, here's the setup of what we have, this is what we allow, and every time we come to these meetings, everybody wants a zoning amendment. But we already have the rules, so why do we have the rules if we keep changing the rules? And our rules aren't really the rules anymore. If the zoning says we only go to 5 stories, we need a zoning amendment to make it go higher, then we didn't want it to go higher. That's why we had our rules. So what I don't understand is when developers or anybody else comes here, we have guidelines that we have previously approved for this township. Here it is, here's the package, do whatever you want and make a presentation to us, but it would be smoother for all of us. It would make the rules more appropriate and more solid, because they're not so bendable. And instead, we always have to flex this, and we have to flex this, and we have to flex that. The process for all of us would be so much simpler if this presentation came in with exactly the amount of parking that we're supposed to have, with exactly the right height we're supposed to have, because they knew what the guidelines were, and then this would have just flown through and said, no, we need a zoning amendment. No. Then we might as well not have rules if every time somebody comes, they want to change the rules. And I'm constantly seeing this, and I can't get past the concept of why don't you just follow what we got? And if it doesn't work, then I guess go somewhere else. But there's a reason why councils in the past have the rules and regulations on what they want this township to look like, and you come in here and you want to change it. Well, no. You're wasting our time because we've already told you what we want. You decide something different. Well, that's not your position. That's the position of all the councils that have been here in the past that have set up the rules and what we want in this township. Why can't you respect that and follow it? Madam Chair, I just have difficulty with this all the time. We're fighting about something now that we already have in place what we're supposed to have. They're coming here and they want to do something different. Well, no, you knew when you came here you think we're just a walkover all the time? Because we do it all the time. We make a zoning amendment, but we should stop this. We should say, this is what we got, make it fit. If it doesn't fit, go somewhere else. But there's a reason why we wanted it, because that's the way we want our town to be, which is what Councillor Trombetta said. I have a vision of what my town should look like. People in the past that have been on council have made the rules so that their vision lasts forever, and this is their vision of the township. Nobody should come in new. They're going to make a project, grab some money, and then leave, and change the look of this town because they want it to look different because they don't want to follow the rules. I don't understand why we allow that.
Thank you. Well, Councillor, I just want to make one point, and that is that in the secondary plan, which is the plan after your official plan that comes down, it envisions 6-story buildings, as our director said. So what they're asking for is this an appropriate place? We would like to have 6 stories because we're a gateway. So I think when you come to this stage, the developer and the community look to say, you know, we do have some flexibility, and this might work if what you're looking for can be achieved with the way we plan it. So
I understand what you're saying, Madam Chair. However, the director did say we would need a zoning amendment to allow that, which
Understood.
means we don't have it right now, and you would have to make an exception to do it.
Okay, and I will leave the argument to between staff and council, but this would be the appropriate place for this to happen. Councillor Riley, and I do have comments, but I think I will let the consultants speak before I make mine.
Through you, Madam Chair, to staff, I just want to, I'm just kind of replaying some stuff here, and I think I heard 2 different things, but maybe it was just me. So there is underground parking, but I heard that there's 204 units, and then our director, I thought you said they were opposed. Or, so can you clarify that? Because there's some confusing information, at least how I interpret some of that info that you provided.
Sure, through you to Madam Chair. There's 204 underground parking spaces.
Underground?
Underground.
Yes.
And 43 surface.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, what confused me is, and I must have misheard our director, I thought he mentioned that the developer was opposed to underground. Could you clarify that? Because earlier, when you made a comment, that's how I interpret it, and then you mentioned the units, so that's why. And it's not in my report as far as what I can find as far as 204. I just found it as they're offering opportunities for at-grade and underground parking, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee they're going to go through with that at this current time.
So through the chair, they're not opposed to underground parking. At the end of the day, the only way these towers can work to provide that amount of parking is to locate it underneath the building. There's not enough space to have that all surface parking. So they're gonna have to make it work, if that's approved by council. I think I may have said during the public meeting that some developers generally, this is going back to the public meeting 2 months ago, but have opposition to doing underground parking because of the added cost. So I'm not sure if that has a factor or not of, but there's sometimes resistance, but these applicants have suggested they do it as underground for the majority of it.
For most of it. And so one more question, Madam Chair, to you, and maybe this could be a question to the representative online even. If you're already underground, what's another 20 more units of parking spaces, not units, sorry, parking spaces? Could that be achieved still if we can get a little bit more parking? You know, I don't know if that means going a whole nother whatever underground or going wider, however all that works. I'm not the engineer. I'm just the guy who asks questions. So I'm just wondering whether it's to yourselves or to the presenter, could that further be explored, whether or not it's decided tonight or in the next stage?
I would think, thank you, Councillor. I would say that I've already asked the representatives to make notes.
Make
So
notes,
they'll address
absolutely.
that question.
Thank you.
And I think I'll go to them, and then I will bother them with the comments I had. So, I'm not sure what his full name is. All I've got is part of it up here. Martin, what's the second name? Oh, no one knows, okay. Well,
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
yes, Martin, your last name is, we do ask for the representative to give us his last name. Well, that doesn't look like it.
My name is Martin.
It's got. Thank you. And you're representing the developers this evening, correct?
That is correct. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Perfect. I'm actually having a bit of bandwidth issues on my side, so if it's okay by committee, I'm going to keep my camera off just to ensure that I can be heard throughout the committee meetings this evening. But as introductions, my name is Martin Quarkapome. I'm a partner with Weston Consulting here on behalf of Elite Developments and their Smithville proposal. So I've been watching this entire conversation about the proposal for the rezoning and the subdivision approval. And as I understand it, there are two primary concerns that have been flagged with this project. One being the 6-story height, and second being the parking. I think that the chair has adequately answered the question, as has the director of planning, the permissions with the height. The secondary plan, which was approved in 2017, does permit a maximum height of 6 stories for the high density portion only. So the portion of lands that run along Highway 20. So we are not seeking to increase the height above what the township's official plan already permits. And that's found in section 5.4 of the secondary plan. So again, we're not seeking height above the vision of the secondary plan and the township official plan. In terms of the parking, quite a bit has been said already regarding the number of spaces above and below. So just to reconfirm, the majority of the parking will be below grade. There will be approximately 40 above grade to service the short-term parking and some of the residents, again, with the majority of the parking below. If you can visualize the plan, the underground parking for the apartments is right under the high-density zone area and not under the townhouses that are a bit further to the north. So that was intentional because the townhouses may have basements, which could impede and cause conflict with potential basements of those townhouses. So the boundary of the underground was determined based on the boundary of the high density zone. But what I will say that is we can certainly explore expanding that area to accommodate more parking. What we're talking about here is about 34 spaces. So the deficiency of what is requested versus what is required by the bylaw is, my math shows 33.4-ish spaces. So what we have to do is look to figure out where we can fit 34 spaces. That is not off the table, but what I will say is that Elite is a very experienced developer that has built these buildings throughout Niagara and into Halton region, and these are the parking rates that serve the market that they want to attract. So they have done their homework. They do believe this parking rate works, but if it is the direction of the committee to explore additional parking, we can certainly look to perhaps expand the underground parking area. And also wanted to flag that this condo block will be subject to a future site plan control application. And at that point, we will get through the detailed design of the apartment block and the townhouses, and we can reconfirm how the arrangement of parking spaces is determined and configured on site. And we will look to increase the amount of parking at that time to see how many more we can fit. But we do believe that the rate that we're providing is adequate. But I do appreciate the comments from committee in terms of challenges that have been had in the past. And I can commit to committee and to planning staff today that we will work with them to find spaces for additional parking, whether it's below or above grade. Thank you.
You're right, my mic was off, sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Kwarkupong. Is there any other questions? Because I do have some questions and comments that I wanted to make with regard to this. Councillor.
I will be the last one for now, unless you spark a comment. To you, Madam Chair. So the Representative Martin there had mentioned provided direction. I would like to provide that direction at the appropriate time, that be further explored. So I don't want to leave it as a big question mark. I can support that with the idea that can be explored and that nothing's going to, cement's not going to be poured until we made a decision and to get this to the next step. But I certainly don't want that to be left as they didn't say anything. So this is me saying explore that. So however that needs to go, you let me know, but I just want that out there very clearly.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I guess the concerns I had were the same as I had at the beginning, and I do think that, and it's only my opinion, is that the park looks like it uses a piece of land that was left over, and it isn't exactly in the place, and I know this is the second application that I am talking about parks, but I feel very strongly about them. I think they should be well placed, and I think they should be there that are serviceable. The configuration of that park is not really all that wide, but then it definitely narrows down, and it abuts not a hazard land, but an environmentally sensitive land. So there's no ability for it to expand or to be used like a schoolyard or whatever, which would be in the general vicinity. So it's just something that disappoints me, but I am hearing the developer being a little more willing to look at some of the other issues. And for me, we are a municipality that doesn't have transit. Other municipalities are lowering their parking standards because they're pushing people into using communal transportation, intermunicipal transportation, and I would hope that in the future we would be looking at some sort of commuter transit that takes our people to the GO train down below, which is how most of the heavy transit in the GO rail system is done. You take your own transit to the GO station, and then you go to wherever you're going outside. So I can't fault it because we're kind of in a chicken and egg situation. We don't have transit, but we don't have people. And when we start having people, we don't have transit. But then transit will come, and we'll have people in transit of some sort that are going to come along. But I do think that we do have to pay attention to parking, and I do think that if it's confined to a condominium, that there will be some controls that we won't have to answer for. But I am glad to hear that the developer is willing to address the 34 additional parking spaces, and that's the flexibility. If I sound like I'm talking both sides of my mouth, we're walking down a very thin line because The strong mayor powers and trying to expedite growth is exactly what we're arguing about right now. And we know we need to build, we know we need to have a vision, and those may not be at right angles. They will be conflicting. If we want to have a municipality that looks like what we want, then we may have to be willing to work with the development community to come up with solutions that work for us as well as their development, because putting 24 or 30 more spots underground does have a cost. So I think we need to now, by our staff, be reminded and or advised of what it is that we are giving up or looking for, because that's the trade-off, and that's how we can expeditiously get to something that works for everyone. Or Mr. Ford had every right to put in strong mayor powers, because we are playing with what we've already approved in 2017 in our height, in our parking standards, etc. So we need very much to be paying attention to what we already let go by the by. But I am glad that I'm hearing from this developer that he is willing to take into consideration ways of mitigating what we are at odds for right at the moment. I really do think that park isn't really the greatest, but you know, that I'll get to you in a minute. And so I think I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to, as the chair, listen to both sides of the issue and understand that we have to give the developer what we've already approved, but we also need the developer to understand our concerns about the very important things of parking, parks, and places for people to live, work, and play in this community, which may not all be there right now, but we have to look forward to the fact that if it's a little tight in the parking, let's hope the 2-year-old isn't 16 by the time we fix the transit situation. And that is a question I have. What are the sizes of these units in the apartments?
For that question, I think you'd have to ask Martin. I'm not sure if they're at that stage of their
Demising of the floor plans.
Yeah,
Then I would ask our presenter, Martin Quincupom, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Could you please give us an idea
Very
of the
close.
size apartments that are going to be there? Because if they're large and people can have 15 children, we may have problems with cars, but I'm presuming you're going to give me something less.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to answer that question. The bedroom mix for the both apartment buildings has not been cemented yet.
Okay.
We will be going through, again, I mentioned earlier, a site plan control process to define the floor plans and the different types of units. But at the moment, we're looking at a mix of 1-bedroom, 1+ den, and 2-bedroom units that comprise the 160 apartment units that are proposed. But what I can say is that mix might change once we get to site plan control for the apartment buildings, and that will be worked through with staff. So there is an opportunity to find the right balance that meets the needs of Smithville, West Lincoln, as well as for Elite as well. But before I sign off here, I just wanted to speak to the park block at the north end of the property.
Sure.
I just wanted just to clarify its configuration and its location. So you're not incorrect to say that it's irregular in shape and it kind of tapers down to a point as you go further north. But that is intentional because of what's happening on the other side of the property line. So next door to us is Mars Homes, who came through their approval process some years ago, and they were required to provide on their side half a park block. And our obligation is to finish that off by giving the other half. So what you're seeing on the Elite subdivision plan is half of a park, which is the remnant half, or missing half, rather, excuse me, of what Mars Homes what is required to provide the town in terms of parkland. Now, in terms of its location, that is also part of the secondary plan that I spoke to of earlier. So if we're looking at figure 1 of staff report, page 3, you'll see the property in red there. At the very far end, top of the page, you'll see that there's a bigger block square in that corner, which matches the location of the Elite and Mars Homes park blocks. So this is coming straight from the secondary plan. And you'll also notice that longer linear green along the rail corridor, which is a trail that's required to be provided as well. So Mars provided their share of the park and the trail, and Elite, through this application, will also provide our obligation, which is our half of the park and the trail connection as well. So these aren't things that we put onto a page haphazardly. They're put there because the secondary plan requires them there. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are fair comments, and I take those into consideration. So I'm happy to hear the size of the apartments are something that are not quite 3-bedroom. A den will not have a closet in it, so if people want to use it for a nursery, they could, but otherwise it's probably going to be an office or a playroom or something. So that takes my mind off the fact that we are going to have large families living in these, but hopefully they will be able to have opportunity to move into something more fitting as their family grows. Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns regarding this? Oh, sorry, I forgot you, Mr. Borma.
Thank you for allowing me one more kick at this. So Martin mentioned what I was going to speak to on Parkland, and some of the history of that is there was a proposed grade-separated rail crossing for the road to go over there, and it was unsure of how much width we would need for that grade-separated rail crossing. Through our master transportation plan, as part of our Smithville Urban Boundary Expansion Project, we determined that that wasn't feasible in that location because of the karst and other environmental features. So that was wiped off the books. But that piece of parkland was a little bit of buffer so that if we needed more width for that grade separated or like a bridge over the railroad tracks, that we'd have something. So that, it is a small park, connects to the Mars one, but through the trail it connects to our park network. So both the larger Mars Park on South Grimsby Road 5, and then that connects on the rail trail to the future Peter Budd Park as well, which will be a 2.5 acre park, pretty much northwest of the community center across the track. So it's all going to connect off street, so it'll be a great network once it's done. And then one of the comments just about parking again. It is really finding that balance, because if you provide more parking, you're either losing units or you're losing green space, because our zoning bylaw requires a minimum landscaped area, minimum amenity area for people to spend outside, like not including parkland. But it's been said that the applicant was willing to look at it again, so I guess my suggestion to council is that maybe this application be deferred, and we work with the applicant and we bring something back next month, and the applicant has some time to make some necessary revisions, work with their ownership to see what's possible, and maybe we can get to a closer parking ratio that matches what our zoning bylaw has. So that's my suggestion to council, is that we bring this back in July after the applicants had some time to look at things.
Thank you, Mr. Burma. And while Councillor Riley did say that he was willing to put in an amendment, I think that that's a better decision, is to let it go back and let staff work through this with the applicant and bring back something that might address some of the possibilities without us dictating something tonight. Just a minute, I've got the clerk, and then I'll go to you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, whoever you are.
Through the chair, it might make more sense to go to the Madam Mayor. I was just going to read the motion that I have prepared, but if she has a comment.
Right, we're not ready for you yet.
Sorry.
Okay, we're building on that, Mr. Clerk.
So, Madam Chair, I didn't have a comment. I just wanted to move the deferral based on the comments that our director made. And because I had moved the original motion to get it on the floor, I thought it might be appropriate to also do that.
I think we're just going to go to you and ask for that. But the idea was, I was looking to see that Councillor Riley would stand down and we would take it back. And that one thing else that we would like to make sure of is, Mr. Borma, the applicant and others have all said there is an opportunity when this is going to come back to have another discussion about anything that still is antagonizing or agonizing at that time. Correct? I think you got to talk so the people out there can hear.
They can't see my head nodding. Yes, I think there'll be, well, by us bringing this back in July, we'll have one or more opportunities. This is a recommendation report stage, so it is making a recommendation on the bylaw. So once the bylaw is passed, that's a bylaw pass. It's not negotiable anymore. There will be other opportunities through other applications. This is just a draft plan of subdivision. There's going to be a draft plan of condominium for each of these blocks. But if the zoning's in place, you can't really pull that back. So I think deferring it is going to be good for them and good for all of us to get closer to that parking that's desired.
I'm seeing a lot of nods, and the mayor has said she would be willing to do a friendly amendment to suggest a deferral rather than the motion on the floor.
So just a question, if it's coming back in July, is it referred, then not deferred? So
Which
it's a
one?
referral.
Through the chair to the rest of council, it is a bit of a finicky semantical game, but
Yeah,
deferral
yeah.
is to take the exact recommendation we have and decide it at a different date. Referral is sending it back to administration to either change the recommendation or bring back that same recommendation based on information
So whatever's
gathered.
appropriate to buy time,
Yes.
I'm good with that.
So I will read out the motion that I have right now. I have used some of the language that Councilor Riley had brought forward, but this will be moved by the mayor and likely seconded by Councilor Riley, that this item be referred to administration to report back in the July 14th, 2025 all committees meeting, and that administration be directed to work with the applicants on increasing the parking requirement to align with the zoning bylaw. I think that captures the concerns from council, generally speaking.
Okay, so that will be the revised motion that will be put before you. And I think we're ready for that, given that there's no other comments.
So that should be the motion in front of council right now. This will just be a motion to refer, and that will be the end of the voting for this entire application.
And that motion carries. This moves us to, pardon me, item 10.3 GS 33-25 with, oh, is it 34? I apologize, I lost my place. It is 34, I apologize. Okay, the motion there, that information report PD 23-2025 titled Information Report Legion Villa Fee Waiving Request dated June 9th, 2025 be received. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councilor Riley, Councilor Maychuk. Are there any questions or comments that want to be made on this one?
It's just being received.
That was what it said. So that will come back to us at a future date for more information, more detail, and for an action that we must approve. Yes, Mr. CAO. How did
Thank
we
you.
get calling you a CAO?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. So, Council, this report is being provided in response to the letter in your package. And if Council receives this information tonight, administration will proceed on the current course we are, which is to complete the CIP. The report indicates that it's not going to be completed till later this year, and the letter received by the municipality for Council was looking for perhaps a more expedited timeline and some commitment. So if this is just received for information tonight, then administration will take this as continuing the course, and we will proceed with completing the CIP, and that CIP will then return to Council later this year for adoption, after which we will be able to waive the fees, assuming Council adopts that CIP.
Okay. Madam Mayor?
So thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wonder to our CAO where this stands. Yes, we need to move ahead. We need to have a CIP in place. What does that do to the Legion Villa team that are trying to gather up other information, do their fundraising in the community when they need a commitment from us? Do you have a sense of what that does to their ability to fundraise and follow their timelines that they need to follow? I know
Mr.
we put this
McBride.
off a few times, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, I think it depends on what kind of commitment Legionville is looking for, and perhaps Mr. Borma might be able to elaborate on that more than I can. From my standpoint, council has made it clear that we are proceeding with a CIP. There's an intent that council has at this time to consider the adoption of one. We're not certainly going to say to Legion Villas that we are going to bind council by saying council will adopt one. But at the present moment, council is considering the adoption, has funded administration to go do that work. And that really, at this point, unless council wishes to take a firmer step, then that's the level of commitment that the municipality is able to provide right now, as we don't have the bounds and criteria of the CIP in place currently.
So thank you for that answer, and I do understand that. I guess my concern is they've come to us several times, and each time they've come, their presentation has gotten better in terms of they have more details and more information as it moves along. But ultimately, even the letter that came the last time in my absence was about looking for West Lincoln to say, yes, we support this project moving ahead. And I guess my concern is, I know we need to go through the CIP process, but I don't know, and I know we can't commit funding, but what can we commit so that they can proceed in terms of our intention to support it when we have all of the information in place, or either that or we need to tell them we're not ever going to support this. And I don't think that's what our intention is at all. But I can see from their perspective, and each time one of us bumps into somebody who's on that committee, I'm sure we're getting the same thing. Like, what's holding the municipality up in terms of not being able to say, yes, we are also behind this, when we know in order to get funding at other levels, they need to have a commitment from the municipality in which they want to build this. They are a not-for-profit, and they need to be able to say to the province and anywhere else they're looking for funding, they need to be able to say, my community, our community is behind this project. And because we are a wee bit delayed in our CIP, we aren't able to do that. I just see their frustration.
But Madam Mayor, we must remember that a public meeting was held, and it was sent back for them to work with our staff. And so at this moment, this committee has not made a decision on
So I understand that, but I also know that a letter came that was just received for information that was separate from the public meeting. Is that letter that came separate from the public meeting that I'm addressing, Madam Chair?
Okay.
Because what it is that they're looking for is to know, are we behind them or aren't we?
So the idea is
So
it premature to give that advice? And
So
that
I'm
I'll
just
turn to
wondering where we are with
pardon me, to our CAO to answer that, because at this point in time, I'm a little bit concerned. So to Mr. McBride first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, perhaps to Mr. Borma or our clerk, has a letter of support in principle or a resolution of support in principle been issued for this project yet?
Through the chair to the CAO, I don't believe one has been. I haven't been around for this entire time that this has been on the table. But looking through their past letters, it looks like some request the waiving of fees, waiving of development charges, waiving of building permit fees. And I think it's only until this last letter that came and was presented 2 months ago or a month ago, requested, looks like broader support. It ends by saying, can we count on and be confident in the support of the Township of West Lincoln? But at this time, I don't believe any letters being issued or staff have been directed to issue such letter.
Oh, you again. Mr. McBride.
Me again. Thank you, Madam Chair. So potentially, if council is so interested, council could direct administration to prepare a letter for support in principle to go out under the mayor's letterhead, expressing support for the project pending successful conclusion of the rezoning process and adoption of the CIP. So I think a letter in principle acknowledging that there's two important parts of the process that have to be concluded, and council's discretion cannot be fettered within that process.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to maybe our clerk. So, in all the years I've been a member of council, I've always told that we have to remain neutral, non-biased, until we receive a recommendation report. How does this not put us in conflict with LPAT?
Ouch. Mr. McBride, it's a very gentle place.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I believe that's OLT now, but the
Oh,
principle
yes,
is
sorry.
through an
OLT,
appeal.
yes.
It's okay, next week it'll be something else.
It would be, the letter of support would be contingent on those two other pieces of the process being able to complete. So the letter would need to acknowledge that there is a public, that the rezoning process has to be completed, and a CIP has to be adopted, and council's discretion in going through those processes can't be fettered. So council still has an opportunity to say no to the rezoning, and council would still have the opportunity to say no to a potential CIP. Essentially what they're saying could be written in broad terms, that in principle, the Council of West Lincoln supports affordable housing projects in West Lincoln and looks forward to receiving a community improvement plan to address affordable housing needs in the community by the end of 2025. It would need to be kept very high level. It could not give any promises around the zoning process, and it could not promise that a CIP would be adopted. It would be a letter supporting affordable housing in West Lincoln and point to the community improvement plan being entertained by council at the end of the year. At no point or nowhere in the letter could it commit to support for the project itself.
So I have two more, Madam Chair. So one, I kind of just wonder through you, back to our CEO, we're having a public meeting, or not so much a public meeting, but it's a meeting on record about this particular one that we're now supporting in principle. To me, it's very clearly the intent is this particular application, even though we're not speaking to it. So I don't know how that plays out and if that's challenged, what that does to our position, regardless of how that goes. I'm very concerned about that because I feel like we're playing fast and loose with those rules. My other question, Madam Chair, to our director, is when would this recommendation report be coming back? Do you think it's coming back by July 14th? Is it going to be later than that? I certainly hate to put you on the hot seat here, but if you can give us an idea, like if we just have to wait a few weeks, then I would almost suggest waiting a few weeks on this, and it keeps us out of trouble.
Through the chair, it's our plan to take that back in July. We were just waiting on, typically following a public meeting, we have the applicant provide us with a response to public comments heard. We just received that today or yesterday, or Friday. So we're going to be working towards the July 14th all committees date to bring a recommendation on that.
Okay. With that being said, I feel more comfortable just receiving this as information tonight. Let's see how things go in July, and this could be dealt with then. At that point, they're getting their answer one way or another. We're just asking for some patience for about a month. Thank you.
Quite frankly, there were a number of items that were not planning oriented at that last public meeting, which we allowed to come forward so that they could work that out with the public, with the people who live there, the people around it. So those were more of an issue than were the issues that council had at the public meeting, but they still had work to do between us. So if we can get our planning-related questions answered, I think that would put us ahead in giving them a clear indication that, or not, that the town is ready to move forward. So I hope they're working on those concerns that the public had.
So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. CAO, for your input. My concern, of course, is not to do with the public meeting. I wasn't at the public meeting, so that's why I was purposely not even mentioning that. The letter came separately to council, and it's not the first one we've had in terms of trying to get some kind of an answer. So if waiting a little bit longer puts it all together and we can respond appropriately, I still think that the CAO has given wise advice in terms of, even at that point, it would just be a letter of intent to support if the various things that we're waiting for them to abide with and to do actually are in place. But we can't keep just receiving when it is a not-for-profit group looking to build affordable housing in our community. So I'm glad to have had this discussion. Thank you.
So having settled that and the motion before you properly moved and seconded, I'm looking now for the vote, seeing that there is no additional comments or questions. So, Mr. Clerk, oh my, look. That passes. Okay, so item 10.5, GS 35-25. The recommendations in that report are that recommendation report PD 20-24-2025 titled South Grimsby Road 10 Road Allowance Closing and Realignment dated June 9th, 2025 be received, and that a bylaw be passed to declare parts 6, 7, and 14 of Plan 30R-15-936 and parts 1 and 2 on Plan 30R-16-209 on South Grimsby Road 10 as public highway, and that bylaws be passed to declare parts 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 of Plan 30R-15-936, save and accept for parts 1 and 2 on Plan 30R-16-209 as surplus to the needs of the Township of West Lincoln, and that surplus lands be conveyed to the participating abutting landowners for cost, and that administration review the 2007 road closing policy and provide recommendations for updates to ensure future road closing applications are more streamlined and cost recoverable. I need a mover and seconder for those. Councillor Trombetta, Councillor Rayner. That motion is now duly put and seconded. Comments on this one? Oops, Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one, we've driven down this road many times, I've campaigned down this road. This is besides the cards there, or that side road that takes you up 10 and then get it, jump over. It's stating in the report that it's bigger near the closer to Highway 20 and needs to be realigned. Can you just explain it through, Madam Chair? Garrett, I'm really, and what's closing here? Obviously, when we hear the roads closing, is it that access being closed? Because I know people take that to get to work.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Trombetta and the rest of council, just to provide a little bit of background to this. So sometime back in, I forget where it was, 70s or 80s, South Grimsby Road 10 used to go perfectly straight, and it was shifted over to align with the portion of road across Highway 20. At that time, Highway 20 owned by the province. And as part of that shift, land was purchased farther west, and the allowance got wider from a standard 20 meter or 66 feet to, I think it's over 50 meters in some parts. And back in 2017, 2018, the owner of Bristol Motors, John Cadman, came and approached the township saying, I got all this grass here. It doesn't look like I own it based on the online mapping, and he didn't own it. And he wanted to, and still does, wants to expand his business in that grassed area. He stated that he cuts the grass, he takes care of it, he wants to buy it from us. So since that's deemed as road allowance, that's actually right adjacent to where he is. On the second page of the report, you'll see a little map there that just kind of shows how wide it is and then how it narrows when it goes south. He submitted an application to close a portion of that road allowance, which then triggers staff to do a bunch of things on our end. So since he wanted to purchase a portion of that allowance, not the actual road, we needed to resurvey out the actual road. So we needed to resurvey out a proper 20-meter strip of road, and actually a little bit wider in some instances to capture the existing ditches. And that was going to determine whatever is surplus to our needs, because we only need 20 meters plus the ditches. Anything else in front of or beside his property, as well as the two houses to the south, was in excess of what the township needed, based on that realignment that happened in the 70s or 80s. So we went through a survey. The survey wasn't done correctly, so we had to go through another survey. We also found out that a big chunk of property right in the middle, so right adjacent to, actually where our road was actually on, was actually owned by the province still from when the province owned Highway 20. There was some remnant pieces of land. So that took about 2 to 3 years to get that land properly downloaded from the province to the region. And then it took some time to get that downloaded from the region to the township. So it took 2 surveys, a couple of years to get those lands into the township's name so we could even process this application, because we can't declare as surplus lands that aren't ours. So now we own the appropriate land. We've got the second survey done, which shows the utilities, so we know we need some easements through there. We've spoken to the utilities. They're all okay with having easements. We've determined how much each benefiting landowner could have. There's a table in the report of that. Mr. Cadman's benefits the most. He gets about 60-something% of the surplus land, so to speak. And then we had to attribute some cost to that as well, so to cover the cost of the surveys and the legal work. So I guess this is a pretty unique instance. We don't run across this too often, that the road allowance is wider than what we need. Usually they're narrower and we need a take width, but in this case we have over 50 meters here. So there's an opportunity for, I think it's approximately half an acre of land to go to John Cadman, and then smaller portions of land, basically the front yards of those two smaller houses, to go to them. They have not expressed interest yet. They expressed interest a couple of years ago, but they wanted to see what the cost was. We did inform them that we were going through this process as per our policy. So it's just taken quite a number of years. And like I said, this is pretty unique, but we think we got all the puzzle pieces together now to bring this home, so.
So through you, Madam Chair, to the director, it's just the front portion in green, I guess, in that sketch, is that what's going to them, is that correct? It's just the sketch is kind of.
Is that the location map?
Location map of 7584.
Pull that up here. Yeah, sorry, that one's a little bit difficult, so that.
So, yeah, I didn't know what's, like, it's kind of, just for my clarity, is it the green portion all along the road that's going to them, is what they're requesting?
A portion of that. So you'll see the surveys later on, and also attached to the report. They're a little bit complicated, but.
There's a lot of triangles and
There's a
different
lot of,
shapes that,
yeah.
not even a triangle, they're odd shaped. That is what's confusing me.
So if you look at the survey that's found in Schedule B, 30R15, it's an attachment to the report.
It's after.
So I'm in the HTML version, so.
Okay, if you go to. Okay. So if you just go to the colored, like, can you go to the just to make it easier, I guess it's the site view, right? The actual site view on it? You
Yes.
have those two, so can you just kind of point, well, I guess you can't point, but that green section, that's not it's sort of that blue section that are both, Garrett, or?
So that map, the first attachment to the report, that green hatching with the yellow kind of outline there, that was the original road allowance that went straight up. So the road's
Okay.
gone, but we still own that. That blue portion was actually the piece that was owned by the province.
Okay.
So our road cut through that. And then that other green piece was owned by the region, where the road hits Highway 20 currently.
Yeah.
So a portion of, essentially all of that green hatch minus a road winding on Highway 20, and a portion of that blue, basically all of the lawned area up to the ditch.
Correct, so the front yards pretty much of those properties is what they're requesting.
Correct, so
Okay.
that's what is being deemed surplus. So there's 3 bylaws or draft bylaws in this report before council tonight. One is to declare the new alignment, it's already existing, but to declare the new alignment of South Grimsby Road 10 as public highway. So where South Grimsby Road 10 runs currently, we've laid out that new 20-meter right-of-way. Nothing is physically changing. You won't see any physical changes.
Okay.
It just reestablishes that as public highway. And then the second bylaw is to say that the balance of those lands are surplus, so the township doesn't need them. And then the third bylaw is to authorize a transfer just to John Cadman at this time, cost recoverable, so he'll have to pay his share of the cost. And then as the other owners come on board, they would have to pay their fair share of costs as outlined in the report.
And sorry for my questions, because we don't, like you said, we don't see this very often in Meeting Council. It's one of the first times I've seen something that much. I guess, space that's wanting from the homeowner. The question I had was, now that Bristol is requesting this and the other homeowners have not come on board, if in the future they want to build on that property or try to do something, is it still held as our property, or is it still held, or does it go to them? Like, can they purchase that property if they don't? Or they have to come purchase before they want to expand or something, is what I'm asking. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you.
Correct. So so we did notify them back in 2020, I believe it was, if they were interested in this closing. The Municipal Act requires us to provide notice, so that's what we did. They both had interest back then, but at that time, we hadn't had the survey done. We didn't know what the legal costs were. So it's, some owners are more hesitant in saying, yes, I'll provide you a $1,100 deposit and a $400 fee approximately, if I don't know what the end cost is going to be. So if this does get approved and council goes forward, we will reach out to those other 3 owners. There's a little bit of benefiting on the Seacard property as well. And we now have the costs, which are pretty reasonable for the cost of land. If they don't proceed to go forward, we will continue to own that land until they decide to contribute their fair share.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for those answers, Mr. Director. Thank you.
Councillor Maychuk?
Through the chair, I believe you've kind of answered it, but how do you determine that value? And if those neighbors choose not to purchase that land, it sounds like there's no issues.
So the policy requires 2 things. The road closing policy from 2007, it requires that this is a completely cost recoverable process, so that staff time, legal time, survey costs, that all gets proportionally billed back to those who benefit. And it requires an appraisal and fair market value of the land. However, in this case, it was communicated to this individual that an appraisal would not be required. And we explained it a little bit in our report. Because of that point, and because of the fact that he applied back in 2018, this has taken many years and it's much more complicated. Staff are suggesting that an appraisal not be followed through for this, and we just cost recover. Since he plans on expanding his business anyway, that would generate more assessment and also be a good gesture to promote some more local businesses. In some occasions, an appraisal actually would cost more than the land value. That wouldn't be the case in this instance. Commercial land is quite valuable, so, but that's typically how we land on the cost of land.
I just have one question, and that is, because we're not stopping up the road, C-cards don't have any, there's a road in between. And if we were stopping up a road, we would normally offer it to both sides at 50% of the road. But this is a very unique situation, so it all goes to the one side, just in case anyone listening can't understand all the parts that we're conveying to here and there. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, if you could put forward the question. That motion carries. And that moves us into other business, item 11.1. This is where members of council can bring forward other business matters of an informative nature. Oh, Councillor Maychuk, I'll start with you and we'll go around this way.
Through the chair, hopefully this is acceptable to ask. I just want a clarification, and this is back on 10.4. I'm in agreement with the mayor that there should be a letter of support, and I just want to make sure that we okayed that, or we did not, and we're just going to deal with it at a later date. I just want clarification.
Well, I'll go to the clerk for that because we've already passed that, so it's a question of an already conducted issue. But Mr. Clerk,
Through the chair to Councillor Maychak and for the benefit of the rest of council, the motion on the floor was to accept that for information only. I believe that the will and general consensus of council was that to wait until the proper process of the public meeting had completed with the recommendation report and to assess where council landed to address whether they wanted to proceed with that letter of support or not, if I am understanding that correctly, in July 14th, the all committees meeting.
That okay? Great. Anyone else having, I'll go around the table. Councillor Bradrick, nothing tonight. Councillor Trombetta.
Yes, I'm going to, I guess, speak a little bit freely here, Madam Chair. I know we've had some discussions with this, but it's came to my knowledge again that the awards for the Chamber of Commerce, once again, is not being held in West Lincoln. And I want to put it on the record now because I don't want to say that they didn't have time to get the proper venue or something. This is held in October. May I?
Yes, it is, and yes,
once
it is already
again, as
planned.
it was very stressed by all members of this committee, that we need to have these awards for our local business owners in West Lincoln. But once again, they've decided to have the function outside of West Lincoln. So I just want it on the record, I'm very displeased because I know how members of this committee spoke in regards to this, and I guess our request has fallen on deaf ears once again. And I know I've had conversation, and not it's not directed to you, Madam Chair, because you've felt the same frustration I have, and you've made that publicly known to myself and to this to the public. So I just want to say how frustrated once again I am, and I will not be attending that award ceremony night due to that fact. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Trombetta, and I will speak to that as the liaison between this council and the chamber. And I will say that they are working toward improving their relationship with council. And if you'll note, the mayor's luncheon was moved back into the township to the fairgrounds, which is a double good because it came back into the township as well as using a facility that this council has supported financially and in many ways over the years that it's existed. But the awards were seen to be of a superior type of program that they felt needed and required and were better served in a facility such as the one that they chose, and they went ahead and they did do that some months ago because there was a need to book the venue early on. So I will convey your continued desire to see that their functions do come back into the town. And I thank you for making those comments, and I will carry those back to them. Councillor Trombetta has finished. Was that on this issue, or did you have? Next. Councillor Riley, it is now your turn to address.
Thank you. I understand where Councillor Trombetta's coming from. I share his frustration, too. I guess a question I have, and I don't think we have the right staff here, and I probably wasn't going to bring it up until next week, but since we're already airing out some dirty laundry here, I saw some chatter, some concerns about West Lincoln students being cheated out of their opportunity to participate with hockey at our West Lincoln Community Center. And so I think I'd like to know at some point, and I don't know if this is the necessarily the right approach, but I'd like staff to kind of come back at some point and kind of review what the I don't know if it's the terms of reference or what the requirement is, because I know there's certain rules we have at our arena that addresses who has rights to allocation on like ice time and stuff like that. And so hearing, some of the residents and their frustration, again, I realize that there's some kind of other stuff going on with the organizations that kind of govern all that, but we have a role to play as well since it's our facility, and I'd hate to think, and this is all speculation and rumors and stuff like that, but I'd hate to think that other organizations are kind of working together to accidentally or intentionally, indirectly, whatever you want to put it, however I need to say it that doesn't get me in trouble, but muscling out our residents and their opportunity to play in their tax-paid arena. And so I'd like to make sure that our staff has the ability to kind of review what those terms look like, what that covers, and to remind those boards the responsibility they have, because if we have an opportunity to say, okay, fine, you don't want to take any West Lincoln children, whatever the situation is, go find ice time elsewhere. And we should be able to have that power, but I don't know what our what our range is. So through you to either our CEO or whoever, maybe you can
I
report
think,
back.
Councillor Riley, that a very wise man once said to me that there's always need to listen to three sides, yours, mine, and the truth. And I think that I, too, have been privileged to hear many sides of that particular
Yes.
discussion. So our, pardon me, I understand that Mr. McBride does know something about this, so please,
Perfect.
if you would like to inform us of what it is you have heard, and thank you, correct whatever misstatements we may have understood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, this was actually something that Mayor Ganan was speaking to me about earlier today. Administration, as council is aware, is doing a deep dive into parks recreation programming. Taking a look at the ice time allocation is going to be part of that. There is a report coming to next week's Community Protective Services Committee meeting that's going to give council an opportunity to speak broadly about recreation programming. Any concerns that council does have about ice allocation, this is certainly part of that bucket. But there's going to be space at next week's meeting for that kind of discussion. And Ms. Summers will be there to further discuss that issue around ice time allocation and some other things that we've got in the hopper.
Okay, so Madam Chair, so I didn't get an answer necessarily, but I think I'm hearing it's to come, and that clarification of what that looks like to come, so I'm content with that. So that's all my comments for this month, or this week.
Councillor Riley, just to say that having talked to many of those parents and youth, it wasn't, the story I got wasn't quite the same as yours, so I think it would be best if we did leave it so that we get that third side of the story.
Correct.
So, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Councillor Ganan, did you have anything to say? That was other business matters of an informative nature. So, this is where we're at. No? Okay, and Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just that I support Councillor Riley as a person who's paying for the building that I don't use. I would like to see our own people in this township using it, so he's got some very valid points. I didn't realize that was going on, but it would be nice to ensure that the people in this township have the opportunity to utilize a building that was built for the people in this township.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Okay, so that's everything. I don't have anything to add to that at this point. So, on to item 12, new business. This is only for items that require immediate attention, direction, and must first be approved by a motion to introduce a new item of business. Am I seeing any? Seeing none, we'll move on to confidential matters, of which there are none for tonight. So, last but not least, item 14 is an adjournment, and I will call this meeting adjourned as of 8:24. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Yes, sir.